For over 25 years, Sister Mentors has been nurturing the next generation of women of color leaders. Our work centers around the needs and dreams of women and girls of color in the face of deep-seated institutional inequities found in the educational system. Over 100 women and girls of color have evolved in astounding ways thanks to Sister Mentors. And with the help of Sister Mentors, they are on their way to earning higher education degrees, particularly Ph.D s. Here, you will get to know some of the mentors and mentees as they tell me about their lives and educational journeys. These women and girls share their moving stories of who they are, where they come from, and how Sister Mentors was instrumental in keeping them on their educational paths. In this episode, we are graced with the presence of the remarkable Dr. Sheri Sesay-Tuffour, a beacon of poise and elegance, whose West African roots enrich her narrative. Sheri delves into the importance of nurturing individual talents, embracing differences, and the power of every encounter to impart wisdom. Join us as Sheri recounts her academic pursuits, the challenges of balancing motherhood and a demanding career, and her transformative experience with Sister Mentors. Discover how the organization's support was pivotal during her doctoral program, providing a haven for vulnerability, growth, and communal strength among women of color. Her story is a testament to the value of mentorship, the pursuit of lifelong learning, and the collective power of organizations like Sister Mentors in transforming lives and breaking through institutional inequities. I am your host, Camila Adams. Thanks for joining me as we celebrate the bold past and fierce future of Sister Mentors here on the Sister Mentors podcast. Sheri Sesay-Tuffour, welcome to the Sister Mentors podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well today. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of course. Sesay-Tuffour, that is a beautiful last name. Where are the origins? It sounds Louisiana French, kind of like.
Well, certainly there could be some Louisiana French down the line as things had evolved. But Sesay is West African, and my family is from Sierra Leone, West Africa. And Tuffour is also West African. My spouse is from Ghana, West Africa. But as we know, as things evolved over time, yes, I would say that, some of our people certainly spanned out into Louisiana and some other places. And also some of the West African countries, of course, were run by British colonies way back then. And so we certainly have some British influence. And as you mentioned, French, there's some French influence in there as well.
Okay. So far, I am catching like this vibe off of you that I am really loving. I like there's just this elegance and poise about you that I'm really excited to dig in and see who you are and get to know you a little bit. So let's do that. Let's figure out, okay, who is Sheri Sesay-Tuffour?
Sure. Well, first, when people ask me that question, I like to describe myself as, through the lens of, what people see when I'm in front of them, right? So I'm a woman, I'm a wife and a mother. I see myself as a leader. I am a lifelong learner, having a Ph.D. and many other credentials, and also even in my role today as a CEO, always finding ways to really expound upon my thinking, expound upon, my capabilities and what I can bring to the team that I serve. I really care about empowering individuals to become their better selves, So, when you get to know me, when you're around me, know that something I say, something I do, something I help you with, something I refer you to is all with the intent to make you a better person and to see what you have not seen yourself. I really care about nurturing individual talents so that people can carry out their purpose and their passions, and also welcoming people's differences, understanding that we are not all made the same, and that every time I meet someone that I just had no clue about their background, their origins, their ethnicity, I find that it is a blessing to me because they're bringing me knowledge that I never had before. So I think anytime you walk into someone's space, even if it's the homeless person on the street, there's an opportunity to walk away with something that you just didn't know. And also, digging a little bit deep into who I am from some of my early memories, I really recall the importance of embracing and valuing differences among us. And as I mentioned earlier, my family is from Sierra Leone, West Africa. And I would like to think that my immigrant parents and my upbringing has something to do with it. And, my father came here in his 20s, and my mother also came at a very early age so that they could build a better life in America. They both came from Sierra Leone, West Africa. And even upon my father's arrival into this country, he was approached by a stranger who saw a man that was confused, a man with a few dollars in his pocket. And he said to him, "Where are you going? And let me take you there." And so, this was a complete stranger that helped my father found his way. And I believe that that sense of the spirit of helping and nurturing and optimism is something that has served me well for many years.
Wow. How has that been something that's always been with you? The fact that you wanting to, whenever you speak to someone, whenever you come into someone else's space, that you want to be able to help them better understand themselves, as well as, just receiving whatever gifts that you may be getting from them as well?
Oh, absolutely. The more I think as you grow in life, every experience, I don't regret anything that happens in life because I think that there's a purpose for everything. And I think that sometimes you don't see that purpose right away. But over time, as you become more wiser, as they say, right? Because there's maturity and then there's wisdom, you look back and you say, if that didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I do think that the way I've grown up, the way I think has been characterized by the spirit of optimism, the spirit of people lending a hand to help people get to certain places in their particular journey, and doing it through the act of authenticity, right? Yeah. Doing it without expecting anything in return, because that is the essence of humanity. And I think that we have removed ourselves. We're so far removed from that. Everything that we do now, there needs to be something we gain in return. Right. And that cannot be the foundation of how we see people and how we see each other. And I do believe that, we all also have our own unique set of gifts and talents, and the potential for greatness resides in all of us. And gifts and talents don't have to come with a cost. There is something deeper within us outside of the cost and the material, and what else am I going to receive if I give something of myself to someone else.
Right on. So, okay, so your immigrant parents, where did they come to when they came to the States?
At the time they came, they started off in New York. So although I don't claim New York because I am.
Well, I'm sorry. Were you already born when they?
I was. No, I wasn't born yet. They were in New York, and I was born in New York, New York City. And I don't claim New York because I was only born there, and that's it. So, dare I claim New York to the New York?
They take it very seriously, like whether or not you're claiming the state there.
They take it very seriously. So they were in New York. I was born in New York, and soon after, I actually went back to Sierra Leone, West Africa, and was raised by my grandmother for a good part of 6+ years before I came back to the U.S. Now, interestingly, English is my second language, and so the only language that I knew was what we call Creole, which is Old British English, which is Sierra Leone Creole, not French Creole or anything like that. And so I do think that a lot of my discipline too and foundation, especially in those early years, where, as psychologists say, those early years really set the stage for who you are, right? You will grow and evolve, but the person you are usually starts within that first 6 years of life. And so being raised by my grandmother and understanding how to make use of very little, and understanding structure and discipline, I think all of those things have followed me for a very long time.
Oh. So where did you come back? When and where did you come to when you came back from Sierra Leone?
Yeah, so I came back about 6, 7-ish. I came to Washington, D.C. At that point, my parents had transitioned to Washington, D.C., and I'm a Washingtonian. And so, I went to school and did everything else in Washington, D.C. So that's why I cannot claim New York.
So Washingtonian it is. So we will make sure to state that clearly. Okay. So, your experience with Sister Mentors is a bit different from most of the women that I have spoken to on this podcast, as to where you were kind of already pretty established in your career set, your life, or, when you finally found them. Let's talk about how and when you found Sister Mentors.
Sure. So at the time, I was in a doctoral program. And it was about a year before graduating. And I recall a peer, one of my doctoral cohort peers, talking about a flyer that she saw about this great organization, Sister Mentors. And I took it upon myself to contact the executive director. So when I hear about an opportunity, I'm not going to wait until someone says, okay, let's walk through that door. I said, okay, I'm going to contact them. And so at the time, I felt like I was on my own island while working on my PhD journey. I knew I had wonderful group of peers and cohorts, but still, this is a journey that, it's like how I described the role of a CEO, that even as a CEO and even with all of the staff that you surround yourself with every day, all of your governance representatives, all of your partners, all of your collaborators, there's still sometimes this feeling of isolation and loneliness, right? Because you carry a weight that is so heavy. Every day you wake up, whatever happens to that organization, good or bad, is on your shoulder. I had that same feeling with the PhD program. I had a great group of peers and advisors, but I still felt that there was this lack of a connection in terms of being able to be open and vulnerable to say, this is a lot. This is a lot. Like, I'm doing it. I know everyone says you can do it, Sheri, but it's a lot of weight. And so I had the opportunity to then tap into System Mentor. Shireen Lewis, the executive director, welcomed me in. And I loved being on this island with these groups of like-minded women who were equally committed to this journey and knew what I was thinking before I could even say it.
Do you feel, or did you feel at the time that part of that, not feeling like you were safe to say this is a lot? You think that a lot of it has to do with how Black women are kind of expected, or there's this trope of the strong Black woman as to where everyone's like, oh, you're so strong, you're so fine, like, it's fine, you can do this, that whole thing, and we just don't want to speak up necessarily and say I need help.
Yeah, it is a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, a fear of having someone look at you and say you weren't ready, or what made you think you could do this. And interestingly, those conversations took place in those private sister mentor forums. It was a safe space to say, this is what we're feeling, but this is also what we're hearing. And so I think that Black women carry a lot of weight, because when I started this conversation, I talked about a little bit of who I am: a woman, a mother, a wife, a leader, an executive. And we carry the weight of wanting to be the core for everything that we do. We've done it from day one. We were the core, holding together the household, holding together the emotions in our families, holding together the neighborhoods, holding together the schools and the support systems. And we feel the same way. Even though we are on a personal journey and we need help and we need support, it is hard to say that the attention has to turn to us, because we always feel that we can hold it all together. So being in a space where you can release that and let it go, I think is so important. And as we get into System Mentors, I think it's one of the most valuable takeaways for me personally, and for the women. And some of those stories that I heard in that room, they were so deep and so painful, but they needed to release it in order for them to find a way forward. It was so important.
Yeah, it's so important for Black people, and Black women in particular, to have a safe space to be able to let go of some of that guilt, trauma, expectations, just whatever it is that's going through. How do you hold yourself together, Sheri?
So how do I hold myself together now, or when I was going through
Let's
my...
do both.
Okay.
Let's do a compare and contrast.
Sure. So holding myself together back then, and again, putting it in the context of some of the like-minded, ambitious, professional women I met as sister mentors, who were also mothers and wives and professionals and volunteers, and who dared to enter a doctoral program. These women provided me a space for me to share my deepest concerns and fears without judgment. That was holding myself together, that I had a room I could walk into and say, whew, this is what happened to me. And listening to their stories also told me you're not alone. And also your issues are small. Some of these issues are way bigger than yours. So get off of, whatever you're going through and let's keep it moving. And they also offered feedback on academic abstracts, extended resources for dissertation, editing, research tools, and other support. And they also offered advice to support you in that daily grind of pursuing a doctorate degree. And I think that was very important. But today, so this is now, over 5 years, I would say, since I completed, it might be 5 to 8 years, over 5 years since I completed my doctorate degree. How I hold myself together today is understanding who I am as a person, my values, and what's important to me. And those values just don't apply to any kind of program or activity. It applies to everything that I do, that my values have to come first in terms of being a person that I am a go-getter. I like to get things done. I can't be in a CEO executive role without having that A-type personality and aptitude. It doesn't work. There's certain things we all share in commonality, people that hold high executive positions. But what I do know is I need those things in my life that help to motivate me and energize me. And I need the opportunity to grow. I need to be in a place where I can continue to learn, where I can continue to ask questions, where I can be around like-minded people to help remotivate, to energize me. And so how I hold myself together now is that I make it clear that those values are very important to me. I need the value of being able to be with my family. I travel a lot, and having the flexibility to take them with me anywhere I want. And so I make that very clear in anything that I'm involved in at this stage in my life, because those things are very important and they help to keep me centered and hold me together. So I think you need to speak your purpose and speak what is important to you, and just step into your authentic self, right? And let everyone else come into that authentic self. Your employers, your programs, your organizations, the services that you do, your volunteer, tell them who you are and what is going to help keep you grounded, and let them be part of that instead of being afraid to share what is important to you.
You said it's been 5 years since you completed your doctorate program?
Yes.
Okay, so one, where were you? What university were you attending when you were going through the program? And also, what was your life looking like? Were you already a mom and married and all of that while you were going through the program?
Yes. I was at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and the Chicago School of Professional Psychology obviously is headquarter campus is based in Chicago, Illinois, but they also have satellite campuses. Okay. And at the time, I was actually prepared to attend I think it was the George Washington University. I think Georgetown also had an executive management like program. They're all in a similar field. I ended up doing a Ph.D. in organizational leadership. But at the time, the Chicago School of Professional Psychology opened a campus, a satellite campus in Washington, D.C. I think they also have a few in California and different cities in California as well. And so before I began enrollment in my program, I had already applied to these other two schools, George Washington and Georgetown, and I had already begun having the interviews and the meetings and actually looking at the class schedule. And so when this popped up, I paused and I said, let me go and see what this is all about. And I loved the fact that it was a small satellite campus, which I really enjoyed because I started with a very small college, under 5,000 students. Also, where I did my master's degree at Trinity University was a small program next to Catholic. I had a choice to go to Catholic or Trinity. I ended up with Trinity. There's something about being in that close-knit environment where you can walk right into your professor and your advisor offices. Things are just not as hard to reach for because it's centralized. Right. You know all the students in all the different programs, and I appreciate that type of environment. And so that is where I actually did my program. And at the time, my kids were young, and it was not an easy journey. And they realized the big shift. My daughter says something to me often that I laugh about. She said, Mom, that was the time you stopped cooking for us. But at that time, I needed them to understand that this was important to me. Right. And I was making a commitment. And, when you look at my acknowledgement in my dissertation. One of the things that I put in my acknowledgement is certainly that, I would not have been able to do this without the support of my family. And so they certainly understand that. But that's where I was. I was a mother with young children who were in a very prime stage in their lives, starting to go into elementary school, middle school. I was still pushing through my career. I think I was a vice president at the time of operations. So I had a lot of obligations on that front. And I was very involved in community work, which I always had been. But I had to make a concerted decision in terms of what was most important, which was my family, and of course, keeping a job to keep food on the table, and also getting through this particular program. So it was a lot of things coming at me, which again, having a form of women with the same experience, with the same circumstances, made such a huge difference for me at that time.
What made you decide to go back for your PhD?
Well, as a Black woman in America, I know that I have to be competitive, and I have no choice. And first of all, I am a tenacious person. I know that I'm also a big advocate for lifelong learning, huge advocate for lifelong learning. And so I don't sit still for too long. That's just something that's in me. I just never have been. And after PhD, I've even earned multiple certifications, and I'm still in the process of doing that now. And so, but the biggest thing is that, in an industry, and I work for the association industry, of which we're the third largest employment sector in the country, next to government, who's the largest employer in the country, and then private industry. So we're number 3. And, my industry is still, at a place where the minority population, drilling that down further, women of color, is far and few in between. And that is just our reality. There might be 6% representative from some of the study I did. About 6% of the association market is representative of people of color. And maybe of those people of color, 4% is African American. And so I knew that at some point I was going to be ready to take on a chief executive officer role. And in order for me to be competitive, I had to position myself correctly. And it wasn't just the PhD, it was also talking to my allies in this space and saying, where do I need to be and what groups do I need to get in front of? And they gave me an in. They gave me an in to closed executive groups where people are peer networking, where they're sharing executive employment search opportunities. And so I started getting away from the desk. One of my mentors, my ally mentor, said to me, "You're not going to be seen by sitting by sitting at that desk 24/7." He said, "You got to get up from behind the desk. You have to get up." And I said, okay. And I took his guidance, And one thing you learn in life, too, is that you can't do this work alone. Sure, trying to push through your executive career, there are things obviously you're going to be accountable for. Trying to finish your PhD, you're going to have to at some point do the research, write the paper and such. But when I say you can't grow alone, you can't advance in your professional and personal goals alone. What I mean is that by me to get to where I was, I had to have conversations with people who were already there. And I said, what is it that I need to do? I know I'm a hard worker. I've been able to push through the ranks on my own. I can deliver. I can execute. And that's when that one mentor said, you got to get up from behind the desk. And you got to start getting into these networking groups. And I said, well, where should I start? He said, well, these are private invite groups for executives. How about I send an introduction? And then I'll see if I can get you into the groups. And it's taken off from there. And so all of those things have made a difference in terms of sort of helping me to mature, get out of a comfort zone of you can do this all on your own, right? As Black women, we do need support. And sometimes it's hard for us to ask for that support. We have to be vulnerable enough to say, I know you have an in and I need help. I need you to help me to get in. And that's, and today I have no problem asking that question, just so you know. Yeah.
Love that. What was your dissertation on?
So the purpose of my research was to understand how African American women perceive and experience social identity as an agent for leadership development. And so I think with everything that I've shared, you can see my interest in advancing African American women and in terms of their career trajectories. Also, leadership development is very important to me. I also majored, my Ph.D. was in organizational leadership, and I'm a lifelong learner advocate. And social identity is important. And that kind of ties to what I just shared with you, that our identity has to be bigger than just the circles that we're comfortable with, right?
Right.
That we have to sort of branch our identities out into other groups that will help give us the olive branch so that we can then move into these spaces that it's hard for us to get into. So the argument that I made in my research was that Black women's experience of what I call a salient social identity, in other words, an identity that is premised on their perceived acceptance of self in social groups, on group emergence and leader prototypicality, can increase opportunities for leadership. So my research interviews addresses a few areas. One is personal identity in relation to social identity, like who are you in the context of social identities, of social groups.
Right.
How do I appear in front of those groups? How do I blend in with those groups? How do I nurture the relationships to become one with those social identity groups that will help pave the road for me? The other piece of the research was around leadership development perceptions and experiences in the nonprofit sector. How do we grow as leaders within the third largest employment industry in the country? And then the organization's role in social identity and leadership development. How do I use the people in my organization, like I talked about, those allies, right? Those resources in my organization to help me grow my social identity and also become a leader. And finally, the individual's role in social identity and leadership development. What do I have to do? What is my accountability to myself in order for me to prepare myself into the leader that I know I can be? And one of the things another mentor shared with me years ago, when I sat him down to talk to him, at this point now I was just an open shell in the sea, like, oh, I want to talk to you too. And he said, in order for you to be a leader to someone else, you have to first start to see yourself as a leader. And I said, wow, that was so deep, and that so resonated with me.
Yeah.
And so my research was around middle management African American women. They weren't into top leadership yet, who represent the nonprofit sector. And they shared their stories with me in a way that informed social science and the practice of leadership. And also in my research, I employed a couple of principles: Black feminist thought theory, social identity theory, women's leadership development, and also the lived interpretation of women were also examined in my study. So my findings, I'll end with that, showed that a pronounced social identity can advance the leadership development of Black women through 6 key principles: self-affirmation, because there is a thing called self-sabotage, and
Yeah.
it is real. So self-affirmation, ownership of leadership goals, adult learning and self-development, emotional intelligence, developmental relationships, and organizational inclusion and support. Because many of our stories, believe it or not, start with organizations who are not willing to see the leader within us, right? So organizations also have a strong role to play to emerge leadership in women that have that potential. And so that is also very important.
No wonder you weren't cooking. That's that and that's just that is such a deep and vast research situation. And also, in a sense, like, you were like, this was preparing. You were just preparing yourself
I
for the
was.
inevitable. Like this is a twofer for you here. Like, you're doing the research for your dissertation, but also for your own career path.
That's right. A lot of self development, especially reading about self sabotage, but also a lot of research in terms of how you can use marginality in a positive light. So there is research around positive marginality. And so when you walk in a room, which I often do in my industry, and I am the only person of color in the room, there may be even other women, but I'm the only Black woman in the
Right.
room. I see myself being in a positive space space. So that is not marginality. That's positive marginality because I bring something to that room that no one else does. And I often tell people that you have to see yourself in that light, that when you are the different person in the space, you're different for a reason, right? And you're meant to be there because number one, you're opening doors for other people to walk into. But number two, you bring a perspective that no one else does. So to me, you're the best thing that could have walked into that room that day.
Wow.
And you need to let that be known. And you need to own that instead of feeling always that I'm being marginalized because I can't believe that no one else here looks like me and I'm in this setting today, right? So don't take it personally. Use it to your advantage. I think there is a direct tie looking at the importance of sister mentors in facilitating strategies of survival for girls and women,
Mm.
right, to pursue their advanced degrees. So I believe my study shares in that experience because, when what we encountered a sister mentor and the support system that helped in nurturing a strong social identity and confident leaders who represent women of color was, to me, in direct correlation to also some of the work that I was writing about, which at the time, again, I joined Sister Mentors probably in my last year of my study. But when we talked about confidence and building that salient social identity, it starts inside of us first. So before you can put yourself in front of all these other people, right? When they said you need to get up from behind that desk, I had to have it within me to know that I can step into these spaces comfortably
Right.
and build that identity comfortably. And so all of these things the sister mentor brings to the table, because it wasn't just being with like-minded women who were also in pursuit of their doctorate degree. We were also building up each other's confidence. There were programs that talked about leadership, identity, presentation style, all of these other educational and self-development programs that Sister Mentors put on. And although some of them were geared towards the young girls that were in, elementary, high school, and college, believe it or not, I walked away with a lot of great information myself.
Right. There's always an opportunity for learning, as you had mentioned at the top of the show. Um, and speaking of, like, what was there a young lady who was blessed enough to have you as her mentor?
Yes, there was a young lady that I was able to mentor, and she was just First of all, it was a great experience because I had an opportunity to work with her one-on-one and to also understand her lived experience. And I think that was very important. And I had an opportunity to also even put myself to the side
Hmm.
and really focus my attention to someone who looked up to me. Even as I'm looking up to the other women in a particular group, this young woman was looking up to me for guidance, for support. She was looking up to me and saying, "Wow, you're already a vice president? How did you get there? This is where I want to be." But didn't even understand that as she was going through her struggles as a young age, I was going through my struggles and also trying to just be mentally strong to get through my Ph.D. program. And what I really love about this is there's something dynamic about that. There's something dynamic about, pairing up with someone and being able to, you're in two different worlds at two different stages in your life, right? Again, a young woman who's in high school and a woman who's pursuing her PhD. But yet there's so much commonality in
Right.
terms of the struggle and also the journey to get to the end. And I think that's bigger than even just mentoring an individual. I think it shows that no matter what phase you are in life, that, no one person is bigger than the other,
Right.
right, at this stage, and that you can come together and still find common ground. And she did graduate high school. She went off to college, and it was really just a blessing that Sister Mentors gave me an opportunity to become a leader in a different way
Yeah.
by showing her, a way forward, by exuding confidence, by being able to encourage, being able to see her say that she would love to step into my shoes one day, right? So in a way, I was getting something that was helping to encourage me and motivate me from her. Although she thinks that I was giving her something, to me, was walking away with the greatest benefit.
No, it makes a huge difference. I mean, yes, you are there to go ahead and to mentor her and to like teach her about, there are certain things to look for along the way and, how to prepare herself for, life coming forward, but it's also like this, like when mirrors, it's just basically like she saw herself in you and vice versa. And it does something to you to know that, okay, I kind of have this obligation to this young woman to go to continue on in my way. And and I I get a thrill out of the fact that she, finds me, just someone else finding some value in you, and just like, yes, and the admiration. And it may be a little bit superficial, like it may be like a little narcissistic, but it's just almost like, but it's like, people love being loved, and it's that's kind of a
Yes.
form of it.
Yeah, they do. People do love being loved, and I think that we can receive love in ways that we didn't even think were possible. And when Sister Mentor pairs you up with a mentee, you gain so much from those mentees. You
Right.
gain so much more than what you even think that you're giving to them, and that's the beautiful thing about it too. So. I am the CEO, currently now the CEO of the Pediatric Nursing Certification Board. So, a little bit about PNCB. We're the largest organization in the U.S. representing pediatric nurses and pediatric nurse practitioners. So, my professional experience, I have always worked for the association sector. I've been in this sector now for over 25 years, primarily with healthcare related organizations. I was the CEO of the American College of Nurse Midwives, VP of Operations for the Heart Rhythm Society, Executive Director for the International Board of Heart Rhythm Examiners. So I am passionate about healthcare and health policy, and have been in this space for, I would say, the last 15 years of my 25 years in association. And I also stay active. I am very active in my industry, on boards and standing committees and advisory groups. And I'm also a former board member of the American Society of Association Executives, and now the new chair for the Institute for Credentialing Excellence Board. I am also on the board of my university, my alumni foundation, which is West Virginia State University Foundation Board, and also board member of the District of Columbia Historically Black Colleges and Universities Alumni Alliance Board. And I do contribute to many industry events and speak on topics of strategy, leadership, inclusion, talent management. And I continue through all of this to live out my passion for self development and lifelong learning, because all of this continues to make me a better person, a better communicator, a better executive. Because every time you are speaking in front of the board, you're presenting about strategy, development, talent management, it's self preparation, right? You're learning, you're researching, you're discovering, you're calling to ask questions. And so for me, all of that feeds into something that's important to me, which is my own development and my lifelong learning as well.
God bless you. And you said your children are almost like basically like 22 and 18 now, basically grown.
2018, yes,
And
yeah.
are they? Is your daughter? Is she? Are they both in? Are either one of them in college right now? And is your daughter going to pursue a PhD or?
Yeah, so it's like you knew it intuitively, but my daughter is actually pursuing her PhD now, and
Excellent.
so she graduated from University of Maryland, and she is now in a PhD program in nanoscience.
Oh my goodness.
A very technical area of science, studying of small particles.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Do you ever wonder what goes in your lipstick or your deodorant that you put
Right.
on every morning? All those little particles and elements are
Yeah.
nanoparticles. And so she's in the School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering. And then our son is in computer science, and
Wow.
he's in college. And so he's studying computer science. So let's see where they go with that.
Well, congratulations to those two, to your children on their journey. That's got to be very exciting for you, just to see where they go and where they end up and who they become the older that they get. And I don't know, are you all still in the DC area? And is Sister Mentor something that you would suggest to your daughter if she feels she needs it?
Oh, absolutely. We are still in the DC area. Well, our family, but she is not. She is actually in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the university there. But it's Sister Mentors. I mean, absolutely. They have had perhaps close to 25 years. They've been doing this exceptional work and using what I like to call collective power to transform lives. And Sister Mentors has helped the women and girls of color to realize their goals in pursuing academic degrees in a system that we know is just not easy to navigate. It's often rooted in institutional inequities. And I believe that the cycle of events in one's lived experience, whether that be good or bad, is all meant to be, right? These things are inevitable. They're going to happen. But there is a reason why an organization like Sister Mentors exists, because those good or bad experiences, they don't want those experiences to define you.
Right.
They don't want those experiences to define you. And so Sister Mentors is a platform that says, we want women of color to excel in their academic journey. And you can come here and you can express those vulnerabilities and you can seek support in your dissertation writing or in your college paper. We are here to support you because we see value in women of color who are pursuing their academic degrees, and we see value when they actually obtain those degrees and the momentous things that they're capable of doing as long as they have that system of support. And so does Sister Mentor have a valuable role in the women and women of color and Black women today? Absolutely. And a reason why at that time in my educational journey I needed to surround myself with women who understood my challenges and women who allowed me to be vulnerable, women who were confident, as I said before, and scholarly and supportive, is because even as a woman who is a self-starter, who I feel is confident, and I have the ability and the mindset to really push forward and to, meet my goals in a very structured way, I still felt that there were some elements of support that were still missing in my life, that the people around me, I had the family support, I had the support of my coworkers at work who were cheering me on. This is wonderful, you're pursuing a Ph.D., but they still didn't understand that lived experience of the things that I saw and I heard when I walked into my program, right? And they still didn't understand that. And so I needed a form of women who could understand it and help me to push past that. And so helping women and girls of color succeed in their academic goals, I think, must be deliberate, intentional, and consistent. And Sister Mentors, to me, checks all of those boxes. And they do continue to make the educational journey attainable for women and girls of color. So thank you to Sister Mentors for everything that they have done and that they continue to do, because there's many of us coming through the pipeline, and we are going to need that support to see it through the end.
Well, that is an excellent place to wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Sheri, for your
Thank
time
you.
and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much.
For more information on Sister Mentors, a project of EduSeed, please visit sistermentors.org. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Sister Mentors. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and don't be afraid to share. This podcast was produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Sister Mentors.